have now the young generation, like Prime Minister Trudeau, that we penetrate the cabinets.
I also want to reiterate how deeply sorry Canada is for the situation this put President Zelensky and the Ukrainian delegation in. It is extremely troubling to think that this egregious error is being politicized by Russia and its supporters to provide false propaganda about what Ukraine is fighting for.
Why does this government treat Alberta like a fart in the room that nobody wants to talk about or acknowledge?
I heard her say a word that I know is distinctly unparliamentary, and I think she may want to withdraw it. The word was F-A-R-T.
I mean, we love your Mr. Trudeau. I mean, his family's always been such big fans of our flag.
Hey, everybody.
Hello.
Welcome. Wow. Episode 10 already. Can't believe we've done 10 episodes of this.
You're in the double digits already?
I'm in the double digits.
That's
wow.
Bad.
God damn.
That's a lot.
Welcome, everybody, to the Maple Files. I'm your host, Snow Himbo, and this is our guests, Angel and Big Mac.
Neither of us are Canadian.
No, they're not Canadian. They know very little. Angel is an honorary Canadian, but he has not been baptized in maple syrup yet.
Nope. Wait, but I have?
I did it in your sleep. Sorry, man.
Okay. Yeah. That's all right. I mean, I would have liked consent, but that's all right.
I use gloves, the rash thing, so.
Yeah, that doesn't really help.
Yeah. So, today's the theme of today's episode is reaction takes over, and it's mostly focusing on the trends that not only Canada but the entire West is moving in. And I'm going to kind of break down and provide some analysis there too. But we do have, hey Miguel, hey Javier, hey handsome cynic. No idea who that guy is. Yeah, we got some other news clips, mostly just politicians doing politician things, which is also known as being awful. I think Yeti might be back next week. He's just he's made it to his destination, so he's just kind of getting set up.
He's made in America. Like, they make them in America. They make Yetis in America.
Oh, okay.
Made in America, like not made in China, made in America. That's made in America.
Made in America.
Made in America.
Made in America.
That's right.
Not to be convinced with made in Canada.
Right.
MAID.
Right.
So
that's correct. That'd be correct.
Anyway, we'll get to our first story right here. Former Trudeau cabinet minister criticizes PMO over access to prime minister. Marc Garneau says he was never sure something told to Trudeau's office went to the prime minister. Foreign Affairs Minister Marc Garneau is criticizing Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and his office, saying he was never sure if something conveyed to the prime minister's office ever got to the prime minister's ears. In an interview on Rosemary Barton Live airing Sunday, he said he felt the PMO acted as a bit of a filter and that certain ministers had closer access to Trudeau like childhood friends. There are occasions when a minister wants to talk directly to the prime minister, and I never felt, despite the fact that he said his door was always open, that was really something that he invited, he told CBC chief political correspondent Rosemary Barton. Garneau served in Trudeau's cabinet from 2015 to 2021, first as Minister of Transport, then as Minister of Foreign Affairs. He was dropped from cabinet in October 2021, but remained an MP until March 2023. Garneau said he was surprised to be named Minister of Transport, but it took little time for him to fall in love with the portfolio. But in the few calls the two had with each other, Trudeau did not seek my opinion on any issues, Garneau writes. Generally speaking, he was not overly interested in transport unless a problem surfaced. When Garneau has shuffled to foreign affairs, a move he describes in his book as unexpected, he writes that his new responsibilities didn't bring him any closer to Trudeau. Instead, he was only called once to offer advice at a meeting with then ambassador to China, Dominic Barton, to discuss the status of Michael Kovrig and Michael Spavor, who were imprisoned in China at the time. The Prime Minister's aloofness led me to conclude that he did not consider my advice useful enough to want to hear from me directly. Garneau writes, I found this disappointing to say the least. During his interview, Garneau said he still doesn't know why he was removed from Trudeau's cabinet. It was a punch in the gut. I was disappointed, Garneau said. I had a whole bunch of things I wanted to do at Foreign Affairs, but it was not to be. As the Liberals continue to struggle in the polls, Garneau did not say whether Trudeau should quit as leader of the party. Instead, he described Trudeau as someone who doesn't like to give up. He likes a good fight, and I think that he's made up his mind that he's going to fight that fight, so we'll see what happens. Yeah. That, or just his ego, like most Western politicians, blinds him. But alas, Canada's place in the world is slipping. Garneau also expressed concern over Canada's international reputation and its foreign affairs strategies, saying that we don't always know who we are dealing with. This applies primarily to the Indo-Pacific, where the center of gravity of the world has shifted and will be there most of this century, he said. We do not know the countries there as well as we need to know them. The second shortcoming for Canada, Garneau said, is we want to be a voice that's heard in the world, and yet we don't have the credibility to match those words. We want to do our share of the heavy lifting with respect to collective security, but we're unable to do it because we have neglected our armed forces for too many decades.
That sounds familiar.
After a litany of criticism from allies, especially the United States, the Liberal government announced in early July that it hopes to meet NATO's military spending benchmark of 2% of members' gross domestic product by 2032. The important things that Canadians care about. NATO's military spending.
I mean, it's an important issue. I mean, you never talk to your neighbors about your NATO military spending?
That's all I talk about. It's like
at the price of NATO militaries and
yeah, I'm at the grocery store and people are complaining about how much beef costs, and they're like, yeah, but we got to meet that NATO military spending benchmark, right? So yeah, it's fine if I can't eat tonight. I wouldn't want to make NATO sad. So
yeah, I need everyone Boeing needs a piece, Raytheon needs a piece.
We all need a piece.
This is what we call an opportunity economy. Okay, we give back. That's what we need.
Economy. Even the sound of that is cynical.
Economy. We give back to our military contractors what they offer us, which is democracy all around the world and defense.
Garneau referenced other examples that suggest Canada's reputation is waning, like its failed bid to join the United Nations Security Council in 2020, or how nobody came to see us about new multinational partnerships such as AUKUS or the Quad. We're slipping from that point of view, and if that's the way it's going to be, then we make that decision, we accept it, Garneau said. But we shouldn't be expected to be taken as seriously as we'd like to be. So, the interesting part of this article is this was by the CBC, which is partially state subsidized. So the fact that even they're kind of letting anti-Trudeau sentiment or negative Trudeau sentiment kind of slip in, kind of really puts the finger on the pulse when it comes to how down bad our country is.
this fucker is complaining about not getting into the UN Security Council in 2020. I'm like, why would they let you in? I mean, no offense, but Canada's like the US's little brother. Like, there's no way that the Americans like we're not letting him into the Security Council. Fuck that. And then they're talking about. I'm sorry.
Canada's known for two things: mining and resources, and that's it. Well, and,
It's like,
and trampling citizens.
yeah, and they're like, oh, can we be let into the centers of power? No, shit. You know, they're like the little brother that awkwardly is there. It's like, hey, can we be let in? No, we can't be let in and be cool.
Britain
Damn.
said it's my turn on the Xbox.
Well, yeah, Britain's more worthy than Canada, apparently.
Yeah. But without further ado, the point of this episode, all in all, is to highlight the forces of reaction that are descending upon the Western world. And I'm going to start with Canada itself.
All right.
Check this bullshit out. Youth in Canada voting to the right of boomers is apparently because young people can't get employed and can't afford a home. Hope that helps the political discourse on this one. Now, this is across the board. Pretty much every poll. I'll just go to Polling Canada in general and show you guys this shit. And of course, they got this garbage. This is federal polling. So, because you guys are American, you might not know this. The CPC is the Conservative Party. That's our GOP, if you will. Okay. Pretty much.
The CP is your Conservative Party?
Is that
CPC? Okay. So vote blue up here is a vote for reactors. It's got nice. And then tied for second place, we have the NDP. So that's kind of like the Soc Dems. It would be like if like Bernie and the Squad had a party. So like they're better than the Liberals, but it's still neoliberalism, just kind of, with less atrocious policies. Now, the fact that they're tied with the Liberals is fucking bonkers because it's almost always been Liberals and Conservatives, and then the NDP trailing like third behind. And I think that's because Canadians are just done with the Liberals. Now, I think this is a really huge missed opportunity for the NDP because they decided to get into this weird alliance with the Liberals and start working with the Liberals, kind of how, AOC and Bernie and the Squad all started just, Nancy Pelosiing it up. Same thing, except for different parties. And I feel like with everybody's frustration with the Liberals, they could have really stood out and presented like a better option than at least more neoliberal, like slop. But instead, they kind of like got in bed with the Liberals, and now they're kind of stuck with that stink, even after they kind of like abandoned the Liberals and said their little deal was over. But you see the seats here. The seats in this poll are CPC 217, LPC 45, NDP 43, Bloc Québécois 35, and our Green Party is like 3. It's like L, just massive L. And as you can see, it's like, it's across the board. So we're essentially just seeing like, now I'll be the first to say, NDP is doing better, but the biggest takeaway here is we are right in line for a massive conservative wave. And I'm going to be the first one to say the last thing this country needs right now is a conservative government. But I'll kind of analyze that a little further. But that is the last thing we fucking need. Canadians are buried in debt. Our social safety nets are already in the toilet. Not even disability pays enough for anyone to be able to survive on. Like, we're down bad. We're down real fucking bad. Wages are not even close to the cost of life. It's not close. Like, it's so stupid. And the Conservatives are just going to dumpster the economy, because that's what they're good at, dumpstering the economy. But I can provide a bit of analysis here, a little bit further analysis. But first, it's not just us. Austria's first far-right Freedom Party is heading for its first national election win. It's kind of the same sort of shtick, but my point is there's a massive right-wing explosion pretty much the West over. We're only not seeing this in countries like that have like a functioning brain, like Venezuela, or I don't know if it's possible to have a conservative swing in China. It's kind of just that China.
Yeah, it's very unlikely.
It's right in the name, you know.
Uh-huh.
Can't really be right-wing communists. Well, outside of the U.S., I guess. But yeah. So, hey, CBC voter. Hey, Cowboy Kitty. Hello.
Yeah. Hello.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for coming in. So, you might be seeing this kind of like reactionary wave, at least in North America. It's pretty much across the board.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm going to break this down. I'm going to break this down a little for people. Because this kind of mirrors what I've been saying for a while. But this excellent account, Mass Strike Now, follow them if you haven't, because they have dank memes, as the kids say. Lay dank pepes or whatever. Yeah. Zoomer speak. We're doing Zoomer speak. I'm going to stop now. Okay. So, this is the cycle that we've been going through for our whole fucking lives. First off, inspiring centrist refuses to tackle the underlying social problems that led to the rise of the far right. All right, we move on. Stagnating living standards creates fertile ground for fascism. Far right win elections. Then we move on. Far right drives economy off a cliff, lowers standards of public life, and generally makes everything objectively worse. Moving on. Uninspiring centrist defeats far right with a promise of change. Moving on, and the cycle continues. This is pretty much what we go through. In Canada, in the States, this awful cycle. And I think a major contributor to that is this stupid lesser voting, or it's lesser evil voting. I think it's a major factor as to why we can't get out of this entrapment of you better vote for the centrist because the boogeyman rightoid is gonna turn everything into super Hitler or whatever. I'm exaggerating a little, but this is essentially it's always essentially disappointing neoliberal governance that leads to these conservative waves, that leads to these conservative sweeps that we're seeing across the board. You guys are American. Think back to what the temperature was like at the end of Obama. Mm-hmm. How fed up everybody was, how frustrated they were. They had 8 years of the okie doke of hope and change. We're gonna get there. I'm gonna make everything better. Drone strikes all over the place. Healthcare's a fucking mess. The economy's garbage. And then what happens? A game show host wins. Mm-hmm. Who didn't have a healthcare plan. But it's okay, because now He has concepts.
He has concepts now, to be fair. So we have to give him that.
We
Yeah,
have
we have to give him
concepts
that
in
at
plan.
least.
There's concepts of
Concepts
in the works.
2024. God, I want to die. So this is kind of the cycle we go through. And it's this cycle of never being able to get out of this, like, and we have it in Canada too. You guys see it all day, all night long. You know, you got the Conservatives saying we need to vote for the lesser evil, who's Orange Man, or it'll be the end of the world. And then you got the libs saying if we don't vote for Cackles, vote for the deep state hologram over there. Thank you, Russell. Then it's going to be the end of the world. And we're trapped right here because getting out of that bubble represents risk. And everybody just gets scared and pisses their pants every 4 to 8 years and just falls for it. So I want to make another point too. This is a point that I feel like people don't really take into further consideration, and I'm going to make my point with an article that's kind of funny. This is kind of funny. It's kind of funny. First reading, why is it the NDP triggering an election they can't afford one? The party is so broke they'd struggle just to cover the travel expenses of the leader. As the Trudeau government continues to stave off an election despite ever plummeting public support, one clue as to how may be that the parties keeping them in power are too broke to afford a campaign. The NDP in particular counted less than $300,000 in cash in its most recent audited financial statements. At the close of 2023, the party had cash assets of just $289,808. This is the exact opposite of the Conservatives, who are sitting on more money than they could ever legally spend in a campaign. Their cash reserves at the end of 2023 stood at $16 million. That's $197,685.
That's a pittance compared to what's spent here in national elections. But I digress.
Yeah, but you guys got your finger on the button.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's going to be. Also, you guys got I'm jealous of all that lobby cash you guys get up there. You guys get mad lobby cash.
You're jealous?
You get BlackRock. You got big pharma. You got other lobbyists. None of them from foreign governments though. That doesn't happen, right?
No, that wouldn't happen.
Not really. I wouldn't say that.
No. None that give like millions of dollars to both of your candidates, right? That would be ridiculous.
That'd be crazy. There's no way.
Yeah,
that's nuts.
No.
It definitely doesn't start with an A. I know that much.
No.
So I bring this up not just because I'm being stupid. I do that for free. But this is another point that I try to make, because in this cycle of neoliberalism not really meeting the demands of the public, not really meeting to address the material conditions of the working class and the middle class, if you're one of those middle class believers. And then there's always an opportunity for a right-wing figure to pop up as a hero. Right now in Canada, it's PP, aka Milhouse, aka Pierre Poilievre. You know, where you guys are, it's obviously, Zion Don.
Mm-hmm.
There's always a right-wing figure that pops up as a superhero. And everybody asks, well, fuck, why is it always a right-wing superhero? It's always a right-wing superhero because of what I'm showing you right fucking here. Right-wing politicians take advantage of these moments of neoliberal incompetence because the right has access to capital and the left doesn't, period. The right will always have access to more capital. Always. That's because their policies, however they dress them up to appear working class friendly, to appear beneficial to the everyman, they are always policies that will predominantly benefit the rich and powerful. Every single one of Pierre Poilievre's policies are meticulously designed to appear appealing to working people. But when you peel them back, and I might do this next episode, when you peel them back, what you find is just a bunch of rich and powerful serving interest. And that's why there's this discrepancy, because this is insane. Okay? You've got a major political party that barely has anything at all, comparatively. Let's do some math real quick, actually, because I'm curious. One, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh, wrong way. We're just going to do some quick math here. Oh my God, okay. I give up. The calculator's freezing. But, I mean, that is over 30, that's over 30 times a difference in cash money. That's fucking nuts. And this is part of the problem. And just, like, look at this. That's not loading either. Jesus, man. Okay.
Oops.
Okay, perfect. I found it. All right, so check this out. This kind of like, if you compare this to the polls and what we're seeing, it almost kind of lines up. At the end of 2023, unrestricted funds available for each party. The Conservative Party of Canada, 10 million. Liberal Party of Canada, 2.1 million. NDP, 1.8 million. Cash on hand, Conservative Party of Canada, 16 million. Liberal Party of Canada, 2.8 million. NDP, 289,000. Now, when you look at the polls and then compare this, it becomes really painfully obvious that this makes a difference. And this is what I mean when I refer to neoliberal incompetence, because there's always going to be a right-wing politician who's got a lot of wealthy people backing him and who's in bed with a lot of people who would love him to get into office so he can pass policies that make his rich friends benefit to the best of their ability. And I mean, shit, even the liberals. Because, like, let's make a quick comparison here. 10 million, 2.1 million, 1.8 million. And then let's look back at the polls real quick. Looks pretty close. So, all I'm saying is that, A, we need to break the cycle, both up here in Canada and in the States. And the only way to do that at this point is through direct action, because we're up here in Canada. If you think you're voting your way out of this, you're insane. You're just bonkers. We're going to be stuck in this cycle for the rest of our shitty, stupid lives unless we take action. Because the right is always going to be there to capitalize on the incompetence of the neoliberal regime. And when it comes time for the neoliberal regime to try and take the power back, because the economy is in a nosedive 10 feet away from hitting the fucking ground, the liberals are always going to have more capital than anybody on the left. Or in the, in the case of the states, they're busy suing third parties off the ballot and, all kind of rat fucking. But I digress. This is from Pamphlets.
Bricks.
I love that. This is my favorite account on all of X.
It's one of my favorites too because Pamphlets is like the greatest.
No, literally my favorite account on the entire platform is Pamphlets. I'm not joking.
Dude, did you see?
It's W after W.
Did you see? I'm pretty sure I shared it in one of our group chats. This account literally triggered that big like declaration of memes fed account. They made some shitty post and they replied with "You should be executed with this," and he was like the tolerant left. He was like mad about it or scared. I don't know. But like, look at this. The West really is cooked. Look at the G7 versus BRICS. Look at that.
No.
Keep KKK coping. Yeah, they do the KKK thing a lot too. Yeah, like we're not. This is bad, guys. Yeah, that's the rat fucking. Is that a sport in Canada? Anything's a sport in Canada if you're brave.
Fucking? Did you say that?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a sport in Canada. I think so.
It's our national sport, rat fucking.
Okay. Well, here's the thing. The G7 used to be the G8. Russia was in the G8. They kicked Russia out, and now they started BRICS pretty much, and look at where they're at today. Look at us. It's like, oh, shit, we're fucked. We are fucked. The U.S. is a dying empire. We're losing less and less influence around the world, which America really cares about, and it's going to be a point where we're going to be like, no, everyone's going to ignore us because once the dollar stops being the world's reserve currency, which is probably going to happen soon, we're screwed. I mean, there's no way we can recover from that.
Oh, and this might be familiar to you guys. Our Conservative Party really cares about terrorism lately, which who can guess what that really means? Two guesses.
Killing brown people overseas?
Mm-hmm.
Pretty much, yeah. It's
deportations and
Okay.
They're calling Justin Trudeau a terrorist sympathizer. It's the same bullshit. They're like he hates Israel. Meanwhile, Trudeau is a Zionist through and through. It's that same stupid game where it's like you don't love Israel enough. No, you don't. Like,
that sounds familiar here.
I fucking hate it so much. And meanwhile, like the NDP, the Conservatives are losing their minds because like the NDP's leader, Jagmeet Singh, was I think the first politician, someone correct me if I'm wrong. He was the first one to refer to refer to the conflict in Gaza as a genocide. And everybody like, lost their minds.
That's the first time I heard of this guy when he said, and I saw an article and I was like, well, it's obviously true. Why are you losing your minds over that?
That's the thing. You only need to step outside the Western Anglo bubble, and like these things that people are just saying are just like fact, and they're not ridiculous. But because you're in the Westoid Anglo propaganda bubble, and you are filled with reactionary slop every day, politicians can do this shit, like pretending to be outraged over. It wasn't even that bad either. I would have gone way harder than what he said.
No, you would. Yeah.
He essentially, just said, like, we really care about stopping the genocide in Gaza. Canada's got to do more. I'd be up there being like, Israel is a fucking apartheid state, and it needs to be launched into a volcano. And that's all I have to say about the subject. And then I would just hit the dab and I'd walk off. That's why I think I should run for office. Actually, that could be good. I have a filter. But moving swiftly along, it's education time, guys. Because an event that happened recently was Justin Trudeau and the Liberal Party narrowly survived a no confidence vote.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that. When is going to be a no confidence vote? Clearly, Trudeau is deeply unpopular.
They already tried it, didn't go through. And the reason it didn't go through.
Well, who's your guys' Trump figure?
Pierre Poilievre.
Okay.
It's the guy who looks like Milhouse, except he doesn't look like Milhouse because, like, my theory is people called him Milhouse so much it hurt his feelings. He went and got LASIK, probably taxpayer funded, but so he doesn't look like Milhouse now. What he's getting dunked on now is everybody's noticing he's like photoshopping his biceps on his photos and shit, and just like
Macron did that.
Yeah,
he photoshopped biceps on himself.
Yeah, these people are all.
No, that's what I was saying when my mic was muted. Like I get asked like, why don't you run for like local office or something? I'm like, I don't have the ego for that, and I don't think I have like the mental health for that. Like I don't think I'd be able to like handle that. Like in my own space, like be like, I'm running for office. Like you should vote for me, like me as an entity. Like I wouldn't be able to like just fathom that in my head.
I would sooner lead a revolution than
I would then run for anything really.
Because here's the thing. Here's the thing. Like at this point in the game, we see what happens whenever anyone tries to threaten power.
They're freaking out about the maritime strike right now. It's all over the news. All 24/7. They're like freaking out. What's going to happen?
Yep.
Oh yeah, here in the U.S. Yeah, I immediately got here in New Jersey. Oh, a strike's going to affect us here. Blah blah blah. We're freaking out. Everybody's losing their minds.
It takes one day.
Yeah.
I will say though, it's a great opportunity because if we can get all those guys on board, every single time there's a strike like that. Like what we need to be doing is we need to be reaching out and making connections, because one amazing thing we could do to really get a general strike pop off is, I might actually do that myself, like actually reach out, because we could get enough contacts, enough people together so that we could actually at least have the threat of a general strike. That might actually get some fucking changes done. And then I would go rogue and pivot it into a revolution, because fuck it, if you got the numbers, just go all the way now.
You might as well, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That is what is to be done, if you will.
Some people might say.
Some people, indeed. But I digress. So it is learning time.
What? I thought we were in learning time.
It's learning time too.
Part 2.
Oh.
Yep.
Damn.
So a lot is happening in Canadian politics right now. From the New Democratic Party, the NDP, axing its supply and confidence agreement with the Liberals earlier this month, to Conservative Party leader PP's non-confidence motion.
PP.
Put forward against Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's government. it can be easy for the average Canuck to get lost in all of the drama, which I find hilarious because, like, what the fuck is an American supposed to do?
And plus, his name is Pee-Pee. Like, that's so dumb.
Yeah.
His name is
initials are
literally Pee-Pee. What kind of name is that, bro?
You just call him Pee-Pee. That's it. His parents obviously didn't think this through, where they're like...
They didn't know nothing. They never even, like, gave it a second thought. They're like, yeah, just name him Pee-Pee. Just name the kid Pee-Pee.
He's just Pee-Pee.
Just name your kid Pee-Pee and see what happens.
Yeah. What's his middle name going to be? Let's make it Poo-Poo.
Pee-Pee, poo-poo, sharding, and farting.
That's going to be...
The full name.
That's going to be his grandson, pretty sure. Okay. So, we'll start at the basics. What is a non-confidence vote? Put simply, a vote of non-confidence or non-confidence motion aims to force a general election and remove the Prime Minister from office. It's a part of the Canadian parliamentary system's confidence convention, which holds Trudeau and his cabinet responsible to the House of Commons for their actions. And this is PP. This is the Trump figure. They can vote to give Canadians the carbon tax election. Here's it. So, or they can keep their costly coalition plan to quadruple the carbon tax. Yeah, so he does the same slogan bullshit that Trump does. Axe the tax, build the homes. Like, he doesn't really have policies passed like slogans, really. What this means, though, is it means that when a non-confidence vote happens, the governing party must have the support and confidence of a majority of the members of parliament to remain in office. In a minority government situation, that means that the government always has to have the support of another opposition party, where the NDP comes in. The minority Liberal government lived to see another day because the Bloc Québécois and the NDP voted against the non-confidence vote. Why did PP call for a non-confidence motion? Harris says that typically non-confidence motions are put forward for a specific reason, such as a scandal or a specific issue. For example, former Prime Minister Stephen Harper's government lost a non-confidence motion in 2011. Opposition parties cited Harper's failure to disclose full financial details of his tough-on-crime legislation, corporate tax cuts, and plans to buy fighter jets.
These people are crazy, man.
This is the driving the economy off the cliff part. What's interesting about this one was just plain we have no confidence in the government. PP is advertising the non-confidence vote as a carbon tax election. The costly coalition. So it's always like costly coalition, sellout sing. I forget the one for Trudeau. He's got one like cowardly Trudeau or something. But yeah, he's basically he's great value Donald. So that's again the same tweet. Or I think this is different. Yeah, the NDP vote to keep Trudeau in power to tax your food, take your money, double your housing costs, and unleash crime and chaos. Which, yes, I'm sure conservatives will definitely fix all of those, historically as they have. The federal government's carbon tax increase in April has been a point of contention among Canadians. But Harris says the Conservatives' attempt to take down the Liberals is likely due to an accumulation of issues. When people make big decisions, it's never one thing. She said it's frustration with the government, it's definitely the carbon tax, and it's definitely affordability as well. This is a part where the material conditions come into play, which always, like I said, gives rise to an opposition hero figure with the most capital. And that's almost always someone on the right. So again, we're going in this cycle. Trudeau's government is safe, but for a price. Bloc leader Yves-François Blanchet has essentially given the Liberals an ultimatum. They must meet their demands by October 29th. They're calling on the federal government to help pass two bills, one protecting supply management and another increasing seniors' pensions. The NDP is demanding that its pharmacare legislation be passed so it can campaign on that and say, look what we got for Canadians, Harris speculated. And you got a tweet from Jugmeat. Today, the Conservatives tried to stop pharmacare and cut dental care. Poilievre's PP's cutting Conservatives want to make sure you can't have free birth control and diabetes medication. The Liberals can't stop him, but we can. What is this, a fucking Marvel movie? Jesus.
That's what all these people are playing. They're playing
they're playing Marvel characters.
It's either team sports or like some no, they literally view their people as superheroes. Like look at Trump, look at Kamala. They have like AI images of them like saving cats and saving babies and shit like that. Like it's all tribal, like very tribal, very team. Like this culture very interests me. It interests me a lot because it's very, how should I put the word, retarded. But,
yeah. Okay.
But I mean, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Right. But so, you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry.
So when it comes to hiking old age security payouts, the Bloc wants 10% more a month for seniors between the ages of 65 and 74. That's something pretty doable. And when it comes to supply management, the Liberal government is in favor of it. It's something they agree with. She said the only thing that could prevent these demands from being met is that they have to pass both the House of Commons and the Senate. Pretty confident that the Senate will find a way to pass both of these bills. Could there be an early election? After the Conservatives' failed first attempt, Poilievre tabled another non-confidence motion on Thursday, which will be voted on next Tuesday. If that vote is defeated, the Conservatives are expected to table one more non-confidence motion before Christmas.
Yay.
So the big question now is whether the Liberal government can hold power until the next scheduled election, which is expected to happen in October 2025, which happens to be the year that I turn 40. Fuck me.
No.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah. It's over. It's ogre.
It's ogre.
Harris predicts that Trudeau will survive this fall in a video game. I just don't think the conditions are right for the Bloc Québécois and the NDP to go to an election, she explained. Well, yeah. The NDP has no fucking money. They got no paper.
They got no money. Where's the money?
They're literally too broke to run. What are we doing? And again, that's because the right has capital. And all of the super rich people who are going to throw money at them are not going to be in favor of policies that put them at a disadvantage and the working class at an advantage. That doesn't interest them. It is against their interests. What she's looking towards is a spring budget, which she says is a big question mark for the Liberals. The budgets, like the fall economic statements, are automatically confidence votes because of what they call money bills. If the opposition was going to bring down the government, they do it on the budget. If they do it on the budget, then it's a way to do it on principle so they don't look as opportunist. The government is distracted. Now that we know the ins and outs of what's happening in Ottawa, it's important to know how it all affects Canadians. The end of the NDP's supply and confidence agreement, which would have essentially kept the Trudeau government in power until next year, seems to have set all of this in motion. It's affected things in that we're all in these negotiations, we're all in these tactics. She said that what's difficult is that the Liberals used to be able to count on the NDP for support, and that's no longer a given. She adds that the NDP used to be more part of governance and receive regular updates, but that's no longer the situation. It makes everything much less predictable. And it also means that the government is focused on staying in government, and that's taking away energy from solving issues and from actually bringing policies and actually governing. It just brings uncertainty, and I don't think that's good for Canadians because, again, the government's distracted. It's hard to settle some of the long-standing issues. Oh, this is about... Says it also makes it hard for governments to make long-term plans and to embark on new projects. As a political consultant who works with Indigenous clients, she says they have been having a difficult time negotiating Indigenous relations. It's hard to settle some of the long-standing issues of Indigenous communities when they don't know if there's going to be a government. So, that's where we're at. Ooh, what's this one? What is this one? Hold on. This could be crazy. Walmart Canada spending $92 million on pay hikes to hang on to workers.
Oh, wow.
Driving the news. Walmart Canada announced it's putting $92 million towards increasing hourly wages for supply chain workers and retail associates. It's the second time this year the retailers boosted wages, committing $53 million back in July. Big picture. Higher wages are one part of the company's strategy to retain workers and cut down on turnover. The company has also rolled out initiatives to make in-store positions feel less like thankless dead-end gigs and more like careers with advancement possibilities. Last year, the company invested $50 million over 5 years to bring its Live Better You program to Canada. That is a fucking terrible sounding program name.
Yeah.
What is that? Live Better You? What? What are you, Yoda? Oh my God. Live Better You. The program offers and pays for a selection of courses for employees that are curated based on the new and future needs of the business. Why it matters. I have something to add to this too. With over 100,000 total employees, including some 40,000 in-store workers, Walmart is one of Canada's largest employers. Decisions the company makes are influential in the broader retail space and could inspire similar hiring practices at other stores. Now, make no mistake, this is 100% to just, this is solely intended for no other reason than to keep workers from leaving for greener pastures. Don't forget, we live in the age of work from home. And, you know, if you've got considerable customer service skills, especially if you got any tech skills, I can't even imagine the kind of dog shit they're paying over at Walmart, but you can probably leave for greener pastures. And I kind of have a bit of an anecdote from my workplace as well, because we have lost a ton of really important people over the last year. And the only difference between all of them is they said they are embarking on a new opportunity. They are moving forward in their career, language like that. Whenever you hear I'm leaving for another opportunity, that is code for I asked for more pay, I didn't get more pay, someone else offered me more pay, so fuck you, I'm leaving. That's all that means. 9 out of 10 times that's all that means. And this is what's going on likely with Walmart. They're likely seeing a lot of workers kind of hightail it out of there and go find other more gainful and fruitful means of employment. And they're saying, hold on, this isn't really great for our bottom line. Not to mention, I mean, there's training, there's hiring, these are additional resources that are affecting their bottom line. So that is Walmart. Good on Walmart, obviously, for increasing wages. I'll always say that's a positive thing because I'm worker first. But fuck Walmart, too, for letting it get to that point. If you have to let it get to the point where the only reason you want to pay people anything close to a living wage is so they won't fuck off to a company that will pay them anywhere close to a living wage, you suck. You should be taking feedback from your workers and saying, okay, the majority of people want more money. Everything else is more expensive. Our wages haven't gone up. So let's give them more cheddar. And again, this wouldn't be a problem if we had worker co-ops. But apparently that's too radical an idea for Canadians. I digress. We're going to move on to the brother. Yeah, that's right. I am 38 right now. I am turning 39 this year by the end of the year, meaning I will indeed be 40 by sometime next year. I know. I only look 20 years older than that. I know. Anyway. So now we're going to move on to the brother and premier of my province. The brother of quite possibly the most controversial Canadian politician, Rob Ford. Here's his brother, Doug Ford, being the most out-of-touch fuckhead in the world. He looks like, you know who he reminds me of? Did you guys ever watch the Super Mario Brothers movie? He looks like King Koopa.
The first one, the 80s one, right? The one from
the like super like campy, like, yeah.
The one from the 80s we're talking about, right?
Yeah.
Not the one that just came out, the animated one. The one that just, not the one from the 80s, right?
The live action one with Bob Hoskins.
Yes.
I know you're talking about.
Yes. Immediately, yes.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to guess Greg is 14 years old.
That's close.
Yeah. He's actually my son. Yeah, so without further ado, and again, I just love conservatives. They're my favorite. Nothing is better. Let me just quickly turn up the volume here. Okay.
Do you know what the best way to get people be able to get out of the encampments, get out of homeless? Get an application and drop it off one of these companies and start working. You need to start working if you're healthy. Bottom line, if you're unhealthy, I'll take care of you the rest of my life. Your life will take care of you. But if you're healthy, get off your ASS and start working like everyone else is. Very simple.
So, a lot of really good comments on that video. Because what Doug here is too fucking out of touch to understand is that a lot of the people in those encampments, those tents, do fucking work. They have jobs. The problem is they can't afford rent. This is happening to more people than I know, where they have to shack up with other people or live with family because they just can't afford to strike out on their own. If they've got a minimum wage job, that's just not cutting it anymore. So the fact that you're that tone deaf, to be like, oh, well, you know what? Like, if you're homeless, just get a job. Like, I'm sorry. What planet do you live on? And I know Doug Ford is a fairly well-to-do guy, so he's not really in the trenches with people that much. But I mean, just a little bit of empathy here. It's like, what about all the people in those tents? The first thing it indicates is that he obviously hasn't really communicated with these people at all. Or if he has, he's lying and he's spinning a narrative. Because if he did communicate with them, he'd realize how much of them already have a fucking job. And secondly, it indicates how out of touch he is with the economy. Dude, you're the premier. That's like a kind of like a governor in the States, I suppose.
Okay.
You're premier. You're supposed to have a pretty good idea of how your economy's doing. And the rent is fucking bonkers. Food is fucking bonkers. Wages? Like, if there's one thing in the West we can all agree on, it's that I'm pretty sure we would all drop kick a hooker or two just to get one I should have done a better example. Just to get one politician who's remotely confident. All right, Crab's got a dip.
Yeah.
I don't blame him. Everyone thank Crab for just going to show that. There we go. Everyone thank Crab for hanging out with us. He can't stay too long. We've got 2 other shows this week, and the rash is really starting to spread a lot. Even with like the cream, like the cream and the tea tree oil that he's applying vigorously every day to his lower situation and now his upper situation. It is spreading very aggressively, so he's got to take care of that. We here at the Maple Files are very big fans of self-care. So if you do have a very aggressive lower region rash, don't stream. Don't stream for too long. Take some breaks to take care of yourself. Crab's scared you're gonna drop kick him. But my main point here is we need politicians who are in touch, because you can't just be out here giving spicy hot takes like this when the majority of people are like, wait a minute, I have a job. It also belies a complete lack of empathy, because he's not even thinking, like, if I were to address like a bunch of people in encampments and in tents, the first thing I would think was, gee, I don't want to say anything that might completely dehumanize and alienate them, like call them lazy, especially if they're working their fucking asses off. Mm-hmm. So I might say something along the lines of, I get it, the economy sucks, we're working on it, even though we know you're not. Something, anything, not like get a job. Also, to note, a lot of companies, they won't hire you unless you have a fucking address. So
that's what I was gonna say. Mm-hmm.
What are we supposed to do? But again, these politicians don't know that because they've never been in this position. I want to vote for a guy who's been homeless, who's filed for bankruptcy, who's caught Alaskan king crab. I don't know why I added the last one. It didn't need it at all, but yeah. I want a politician who's actually gotten his fucking hands dirty. Someone who's understanding of where average Canadians are. Average working class people, where they are at. God damn. But anyway, on the note of Dougie, we got some further. We got Dougie's making the rounds in general. No, don't do it. I'm going to make this bigger so we can read well. Let's see how that looks on screen. Looks maybe one more. I love the zoom feature, man. It makes me really happy. And it's better for me reading. On August 28th, Premier Ford made the most consequential announcement of his tenure by announcing the largest competitive energy procurement in Ontario history. To date, there has not been a single word of criticism from any opposition party, not even the NDP. Surprisingly, there were no questions from any journalists anywhere. No one said a word. It was in reality an announcement of the biggest expansion of private for-profit power in Ontario history. It will cost the public and business multiple billions. With electricity being central to the climate crisis, affordability, and democracy, there are important questions to be asked. It was clear that developers pushed forward to open the Greenbelt for them to build on at an immediate gain of $8.2 billion. Question number 1. Who was behind the push for such a huge expansion of private power in Ontario? In Ford's announcement, he uses the word affordable 9 times. Sprinkled throughout are also claims of low cost, saving consumers money, and competitive pricing. Ford made the exact same promises as Mike Harris when he brought in hydro deregulation. Complete and utter BS. According to the Financial Accountability Office, Ford is spending up to $7 billion a year hiding and protecting former Conservative Premier Mike Harris's deregulated electricity market scheme. This is a market that was designed by Enron and a who's who from the banking and financial sector. Ford is not the first to socialize with the corporate elite. Shortly after Mike Harris was elected, he went fishing with Kenneth Lay, chairman of Enron, in the Northwest Territories. So you have politicians real buddy-buddy with the moneyed interest. Does that sound familiar at all, Angel?
Yes, it does. And Enron, isn't that the company that fell apart because they were lying about how much money they were worth? I remember that. And that guy's hanging out with a CEO, like, oh, yeah, my buddy. He's cooking his books and faking how much money he has.
Question 2. Why do we still have an electricity market that was designed by Enron still open in Ontario? Which leads us to the following. With such a massive increase in private for-profit power selling into this market, big rate increases are inevitable. Question 3. Is Ford going to use the public treasury to subsidize these rate increases too? There are many more questions, particularly on the climate crisis. Democracy is at risk, not just in the US, but here too. With only 17% of voters putting Ford in power last time, it is a big issue. 17%, that's a fact. Democracy was subverted to take our public power systems. Conservative governments in Ontario have either subverted democracy, bypassed or eroded it to the benefit of the private sector. They've done this in a few ways. First, there was never a mandate from the people to do things like privatization. Second is what conservatives call cutting red tape, making it sound good, but eliminating laws and regulations that require public input and support. This is something I talk about conservatives doing a lot. It's kind of related to what I said before on how conservatives always put forward these proposals that have a veneer of benefit for the populace, for the everyman. But in reality, all it does is benefit them in big business, and especially their friends on big business. Finally, the third way, and perhaps the worst, is whenever conservatives pass new legislation, they give themselves and their ministers more power to rule by decree with no transparency and no public input whatsoever. Mike Harris did it repeatedly, first with Bill 26, the Omnibus Bill 1996, which also removed a law requiring a binding public referendum anytime a public asset or service was to be sold. Then, with his hydro deregulation legislation, which was really just one very elaborate bill broken down into 3 bills for less security and easier passage in the legislature. Bill 35, Energy Competition Act, the Electricity Act, and the Ontario Energy Board Act, all in 1998. To this day, we are all paying through the nose for this legislation. These 4 bills gave enormous power to the government and their ministers to make decisions by decree. Now Ford has repeatedly done this. The prime example being Bill 165, Keeping Energy Costs Down Act, which, wowie.
Yeah, it's Orwellian.
Did we spend a lot of time on that name?
Yeah.
Giving themselves more power to rule by decree, and the removal of procedural fairness entirely. Another example is Bill 218, supporting Ontario's Recovery Act, which shielded private owners of long-term care facilities from being sued for negligence, where 4,000 died during the pandemic, many from neglect. Then Ford turned around and gave these same private companies 30-year licenses and hundreds more beds, no public consultation. Ford is also under investigation for the Greenbelt. There really needs to be investigative reporting here to find out just who is behind Ford's massive announcement on energy and to defend democracy in the public interest. So that was an excellent article, very well informed, very, very good breakdown, in my opinion, of just what Dougie's up to. And as usual, it's more for the wealthy in the business sector, and less for the working class, less for you and your families.
Yep, that's how it works with most politicians. That's how it fucking works.
This is an interesting article. Or sorry, interesting video.
The federal government detailed funding to.
Now think outside the box. And this is like our version of CNN, right? So.
The federal government detailed funding today for its action plan on combating hate. It came out of the 2 national summits held by Ottawa on Islamophobia and anti-Semitism. CBC's Sarah Galashan has more details on this story. So, Sarah, what more can you tell us about this plan?
Well, Jacqueline, this is a response to the rising level of number of incidents of hate that we're seeing in Canadian communities. Police are reporting that hate crimes have doubled since 2019. Specifically, we see a sharp increase between 2019 to 2022 during those very tough years of the pandemic. But then in 2023, a 32% rise in hate crimes in communities across the country. The federal government pointing to fears and feelings that have been influenced by global events. Think about the October 7th attacks, and then...
Yeah, it was the October 7th attacks. Does anybody know what angle this is already? We can't even get halfway through the fucking video. Before isn't it crazy how we all know like exactly what this is for, who this is for, and who this is at the behest of, and who it is going to punish? Because when they refer to hate crimes, any chance they're referring to, I don't know, protests?
Yep.
Because of a certain event of some kind. Why is she talking like that? Stephanie, that's actually my mom. Please watch your mouth. She's doing her best up there. No, I'm kidding. That's just Canadianese. But I digress.
And Israel's resulting military response against Hamas in Gaza and now Hezbollah in Lebanon. So there are a number of ways that Canada's action plan on combating hate is, we're told, going to make Canadian communities and specifically individuals as well who might be feeling fear feel safer. Take a listen.
This means better data tracking on hate crimes through StatsCan. Increase resources for law enforcement so that they can understand the needs and concerns of diverse communities. Reforms and education for our justice system to better inform how to deal with hate crimes. More funding to financially support survivors and victims of hate crimes. To ensure communities have the resources they need to feel safe and secure, as well as initiatives that will build trust between communities that experience hate and the institutions that respond to the incidents of hate.
So as far as building that trust, that there will be a security there if it's needed. The existing security infrastructure program in Canada, it is getting a revamp. It's getting a new name. They're now calling it the Canada Community Security Program, CCSP. And it's also importantly getting more money, $65 million more dollars. 16 million of those dollars can be available this year. And so they are putting out calls for applications to community groups, projects, organizations that would qualify. They can be eligible for up to $1.5 million. And under the new formula that's being introduced as part of this, the federal government could provide up to 70% of that funding. And it could be complemented by other levels of government funding that might be made available. And Jacqueline, important to this when we talk about the protection element of this and those individuals and communities feeling safe, some of that money can be used to pay for accredited security guards.
You mentioned this a bit, Sarah, but what sort of groups might be able to benefit from this funding?
Yeah, we're talking about groups that might feel that they are either targets for hate, might be targets for hate, might also be groups that are working to try and combat hate.
Working to combat hate.
Right out of the bag, there it is. Mm-hmm. So I'm not saying that this is definitely just a clever way to clamp down on people protesting the genocide in Gaza. But it's probably clamping down on the people protesting genocide in Gaza. It's probably all any of this is, really. And I hearken back to the trucker convoy when a lot of people on the left were yelling at me and saying, why are you speaking out against what's happening? They're just a bunch of dirty anti-vaxxers. Well, like I said back then, and like has always already happened in Canada, if the government is able to suppress protest for a cause that you don't agree with, they are absolutely able to suppress protest for a cause you do agree with. And the government has already done this for pro-Palestinian protesters, just as a FYI.
The things that it can be used to pay for this money, administration space, it can be used for cemeteries, it can be used for childcare centers, so it can really run the gamut, and that's all part of this new formula, and this is what organizations have sort of said that they need. At the press conference, we actually heard from a couple of voices representing groups that are working toward trying to increase dialogue on particularly tough topics centering around the Middle East. I want to play you a little bit of what we heard from both sides of this that are trying to work together.
Both sides.
We want to see solidarity dialogues in Ottawa, in Toronto, in Vancouver, in Montreal, and any other place. We want to expand the tent that will include everybody and that will never leave anyone behind.
People are suffering, and this is an effort not to ignore or to silence it, but to give them a voice and find a solution through safe and effective communication. We also hope it will bring down the temperature, which has risen far too high because of polarization.
So that's just one example of a group trying to foster dialogue. And of course, Jacqueline, by doing so, the hope is that they increase that dialogue, they increase an understanding between those who might be feeling fear, so that they have a better understanding of the other side of the issue.
Okay, Sarah, thanks so much. That's the CBC's Sarah Galashan.
Wow.
Oh my fucking God. All right, so that's no, kill it with fire. So that's where we're at when it comes to where Canada's at with hate crimes. Now, I'm not seeing a lot of these so-called anti-Semitic hate crimes. I'm not really seeing a ton of them. What I am seeing a lot of is a lot of people taking time out of their day and risking their personal well-being to protest in ongoing genocide. That's what I'm seeing a lot of. And I feel like they're probably just calling that a hate crime. I think it's just that.
Well,
I think that's all that's going on here. I think that's all this is.
Yeah, probably. Here in the U.S., they passed a bill saying that if you call someone a You call some Zionists, yeah. That I'm sorry, I'm just lost my train of thought there. If you call them, basically they're trying to conflate anti-Zionist with anti-Semitism. If you saw someone in Zionist, oh, you're anti-Semitic, and you're allowed. They can take away all your government assistance or whatever. So there you go. It's happening here in the U.S. too. So that at least that's more blatant though here in the U.S. Unlike in Canada, where it's kind of like, we're gonna create this new government thing to give money to organizations to do this and that and the third, also to increase more security. She said, and hire more people. So it's an indirect way, as you said, to kind of, take to clamp down on protests against Zionism and pro-Palestinian protesting.
Yeah, because let's unpack this for a second.
Mm-hmm.
What else could be causing an increase in hate crimes? What would that entail? What changed? Well, the only thing that changed since that date that she mentioned was shit started heating up over in Palestine, and the world started paying attention. We've never paid attention to this issue to this extent. And when we finally looked, we were all horrified.
Yeah.
And there's no going back. I can't unsee those videos I saw. I can't unsee any of that. I can't unsee those kids. I can't unsee parents crying because they know they'll never spend another day with their with their son or daughter anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I can't, that's never going to leave my head. It's etched into my mind until the day I probably die. So, yeah, people aren't just going to forget this. And the ghoulishness of these fucking government officials and the ghoulishness of our media apparatus that's framing it like this is exactly how they're painting this. The best they can do is, both sides, and, we just want to increase dialogue, and there's too much hate language. When in reality, anyone with a shred of dignity would get up there and say, look, I know there's a lot of protests going on. I know there's a lot of people upset about this issue. We hear you. We also think it is completely unacceptable. That's the bare minimum you can do. Bare minimum. They can't even do that. They can't even do that. They gotta coat everything in this flowery language and make the issue seem much more complicated than it actually is. Really not complicated. All you got to do, all you need is a pair of peepers, and you kind of got it. You can see it. You can see what's happening. Very, very simple. Regardless. All right, before I get too emotional, that's all I had for today. But Steph's comment about speaking Canadianese, that made me want to end with us having some fun. So I'm going to ask you guys, you in particular, Angel, how much of what this guy says you can understand?
Okay.
Just because it'll be funsies, as the kids say. If you're Canadian, there's a 100% chance you've already seen this video, but I think there's a good chance that Angel probably hasn't. So, without further ado.
Okay. Can you make a video where you just speak proper Canadian to the point where we can't understand you? You know what, bud? I'm pretty sure I can help you out with that one there, because just the other day I decided to fuck the dog and take a rip over to Tim's to grab a double and some Timbits. Tell you right now, there's some pretty not bad pricing on that shit, because it only set me back a couple loonies and a toonie. After that, skirted on over to the Lickbo. Figured a couple wobbly pops wouldn't get the job done, even if I grabbed a twofer of them, and everyone knows there's not enough juice inside of Mickey. So I just decided to fucking send it straight for a 260. You know what, bud? You get some of that in you with a couple darts there, and it'll turn you into a proper fucking shit disturber right on the spot. Anyway, brought the Twixer over to the bush with some buddies to get some fucking shinny going, and a couple Habs fans showed up with their stupid sweaters there. Tell you right now, bud, the chirps were just fucking flying, bud. Their twigs were in worse shape than our goddamn government, and that shit's in fucking shambles right now, I'll tell you that. Anyway, if you're ever in the market for a new bunny hug or a toque there, make sure to check out my merch site. It's got some great shit on it, bud.
All right, now how much of that did you understand?
Probably a quarter of it, because it kind of reminded me of my mother, my people in my family speak Spanish. That's I just caught a quarter of it, you know. So it reminded me of people in my family speak Spanish. It's like, whoa, like take a chill pill, speak clearly. I mean that I only caught like a quarter of that, barely, you know. So, and also my eyes went cross-eyed, like what?
Yeah, that's our differences, because that's like that's just how I hear people. That's just Canadian, really. There's different dialects, though. That would be a fun episode to go over, especially like
okay.
Newfoundland and all the East Coast dialects. And oh man, those are that's like the stereotypical like shit you see in like cartoons. Hey, you're talking like this, eh? There's a bunch. There's a bunch.
That's crazy.
But anyway, guys, thank you so much for tuning in today. Real quick, I'm just going to share. We do have a YouTube channel. It is, as you can see, youtube.com/@the_maple_files. So if you wanted to follow us, much appreciated. We are trying to oh, Natalie said interpret it.
Oh.
Basically, all he talked about there was going to get a cup of coffee at Tim's, which is Tim Hortons, then going to the liquor store, the Lickbo, to get a twofer, which is a bunch of beer. And then he ran into some people who were hockey fans, and the chirps, which is shit talking, were just flying. So it's essentially just, it covers about an hour max of what his day was like. So,
wow.
Anyway, guys, again, thank you so much for tuning in. Please be sure to like, comment, subscribe, all that good shit.
Yep.
And thanks to everybody for tuning into episode 10 of the Maple Files. Well, glad you're okay, Natalie.
Yeah.
I've been having some intestinal issues myself, and in solidarity, I just got blood work results back, and they're apparently very bad. So I'm not. I also have some health things. So fingers crossed for you. Fingers crossed for me. And yeah, I am going to go eat some.
All right.
I'm gonna go eat some dinner. But thanks to Angel as well, as always, my dude, for
thanks for
hanging out.
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, always
All
fun
right.
being Canadian with